attraction is almost like magic at times. You can feel like some unworldly, out of this universe, parallel universe sort of deal, where we feel so attracted in at peace and at one with unity with someone else that it's almost like we're the same person. When you take this example of a tree, you take two trees that look exactly alike and you put them next to each other, no harm, no foul, right? They look like the exact same tree. And I thought about trees as being something that we take it for granted every single day. We look at trees and we see trees. We don't realize how much alike and how much different they actually are. You take two trees that look completely different, and if you look at them at a certain distance, if you're from far away, they look like one tree. Up close, they look like one tree. But the two trees, meaning two people, if you was to correlate this to human beings, two people would seem like one. You would never be completely one because you're two unique individuals, but the closer you get, it's almost as if you're one. It's indistinguishable. And the closer you are to each other, as the example of the tree, if it's the same type of tree and they're really close together, they're going to look like one tree. And even if you're different type of trees, at a distance, depending on how far away or how close you are, they seem like one tree. And I think that's the same in relationships. What fuels it? You know, trees need what to survive? They need sunlight to survive. It needs water to survive. In relationships, you could maybe swap out water for communication. You could swap out sunlight for loyalty and commitment. You could get to a place in the relationship where you are no different than a tree. You need certain things for a relationship to survive. You need certain things for a tree to survive. But we don't want to be alone. I always say there's a utopian tree. The utopian tree theory for The Brave Never Fall is always about a tree that is isolated and it's in the middle of nowhere. It's in a beautiful place, but at any point, anybody could come with an axe and cut it down. A bolt of lightning can hit it. It could get not enough sunlight. It can get not enough water, and it could die. So what's the point of being this beautiful utopian tree if you don't have all the other things around it to make it utopia? You need the basic essential things that can make that tree grow. You need the water, you need the sunlight, you need the ground. And that had me thinking about something else. The ground. Where we plant our roots is the most important thing. No tree on this planet can survive without its trees being planted in the right spot. Like each tree has its own particular set of circumstances where it has to be planted where it's planted. It is what it is. Just like we can't quantify how consciousness enters our brain in the womb, how is it that one certain type of tree can survive in an environment and you put a tree that's completely identical to that tree and it dies in no time? It's because there's unique properties within that particular tree that made it thrive in that particular spot. Its roots were planted in the right spot. The water hit it just at the right angles. The sunlight hit it just at the right angles. It got just as much sunlight as it needed. It got just as much water as it needed. And it was rooted in a foundation that was perfect for its escalation, its ascension, its growth. And we too often take for granted for that in relationships. In relationships, we do nothing different. It's all about, where do you want to plant your roots? Where would you like to call home? And what tree would you like next to you? Do you want a tree that's identical to you? Or do you want a tree that's a little bit different from you? Because either one of those scenarios can work. There are plenty of trees out there that are trees that have completely different types of trees right next to them, and they seem to thrive. Then you see trees that have exactly the same type of tree next to them, and they seem to not work out so well. It's almost like they're fighting against each other. So should we go with the one that's completely identical in a relationship with this, or should we go with someone that's a little bit different? I would say that what difference does it make? What feels natural is probably the best course of action, because we can't force it anyway. No more than a tree can force where it's planted or where it's grown from. It is what it is. And I think that's what makes looking at a tree so spectacular. It didn't ask to be there. It can't move. It's just there. When you have a tree and it's sitting next to another tree, we can tend to look at those two trees, or we can say we can take a step back and say, okay, because it's that old saying, you can't see the forest for the trees, you can't see the sky for the trees. What are we actually looking at? Are we looking at the trees one individually or as a collective? You look at one tree, it's a tree. You look at all the trees, it could be a forest. It's the same way in relationships. The closer you are in relationships, it doesn't have to be just a couple, a significant other. It could be any relationship where you're required to interact and communicate with other beings and to inhabit the same space as other people. The closer you are to people that you're more aligned with, that you know that where your roots are planted on the same type of ground that's steeped in good values and morals and principles, if you can surround yourself with them, you have a much greater chance of survival than if you are alone or with trees that are incompatible, even if they seem like they are exactly like you. It's a lot to think about in life, but one thing we don't have to think about is we don't have to think about all the things that we aren't. We just have to focus on all the things that we are. And what we are is what we are. Who we are is who we are. If we can focus on that and align people with us who is the exact same as us, yet different, we're no different than those trees that seem to be united.